Hello everybody, and you are so welcome to our panel discussion around women entrepreneurship right here at TU Dublin. My name is Susan HayesCulleton and I am going to be moderating each of the panels that you're going to be participating in right throughout this series. The first one that we're going to talk about today is around work-life balance. Now, work-life balance to many people can feel elusive. It can feel some sort of ideal that can be very difficult to achieve. However, we can often feel that other people have it, and sometimes we can even feel guilty that we don't have what others perceivedly make look easy. So today we're going to have a really good discussion about this with two fantastic female entrepreneurs, and I'm going to introduce you to those a little bit later on. But before we do that, in preparation for this conversation, had to think around what I feel work-life balance really is. And in my mind, it is not just about having enough of one to support the other, but instead what I think it is something that is about having discipline in between the two, but it's also about being happy in one that leads to happiness in the other. And I do think that one feeds into the other. But on a very practical basis, I have to tell you that I've done three things that has been very, very helpful for me along the way. And I think over the course of our conversation, you're going to learn a lot from our two female entrepreneurs. So I think that it is important that we give you tangible takeaways to think about and perhaps to see if they might fit with you. The first of those things that I've done is that I have actually got coached on mindfulness. And lots of people think about mindfulness in many ways, but for me, it means that when I do switch off, that I can switch off really quickly and I can be fully present when I'm in work, but similarly as well when I'm not. So that when I'm just in life, that is non-work, that I can enjoy the most of that time. And it doesn't take me an awful lot of time to wind down then. The second thing that I've done, and this has been something that I started as a New Year's resolution and have carried the whole way through, is that I take time out every day to think. I make sure that I go out for breakfast every morning, even if it's just a coffee, and I just take time to think before the day starts. Partly that took the process of making sure that my diary was clear early in the morning so that I didn't have calls and so on. But it also simply took putting that process in place and making sure that I took the time to get up earlier so that I could just have that time to think. Now, that is one of the most important things that I have found in my own work-life balance, because it powers me up for the day and it gives me that sense of clarity along the way. And the third thing, and I'm sure you're going to hear about this later on in our discussion, is exercise. Now, I have to say, I've had a funny enough relationship with exercise over the years. In my 20s, I can't say I did an awful lot. But certainly as time went on, I realised that the more stressful my job became, and of course I am an entrepreneur myself, so I was creating that environment, the more important it was to take care of me as the foundation of that business and of the team that I was building around me. So I was doing various different things. At the beginning I used to go to the gym, and then I broke my foot in 2018, which then meant, and it was quite a bad break, I was there for a year, so therefore I couldn't stand on my foot for quite a period of time, so I started to swim. Then of course lockdown happened, and since then I know I have to admit this embarrassingly, but actually in my back garden I do YouTube videos. I don't record them, by the way. I follow YouTube videos that are dance routines, and that when I do those I really do forget everything along the way. And I have to say, I don't just exercise for my body, I exercise for my mind. So they are three key things that I do to establish work-life balance. They're not for everybody. In fact, they may not be for anybody, just for me, but the point is that I really do see the benefit of doing them along the way. However, we also need to look at beyond that. How does work-life balance work around the world? Well, interestingly, when the OECD did some research into this, the OECD is a combination of 38 countries. And what it did was it looked at it from a sole point of view of hours. And the OECD deems anybody who works over 50 hours a week to be working very long hours. 5% of people in Ireland do that. And in fact, you may well be one of them as you tune into our discussion today. And perhaps, depending on where you want to go, you're intending to be one of them in the future. The thing is that does have a long-term toll on your health. And our conversation with our female entrepreneurs today is going to be, is it worth it? What does sustainability look like along that way, etc. So, as we look at this conversation, we are now going to zone right into the narrative behind two very successful female entrepreneurs at different stages of their lives. And I'm saying lives, not just their businesses. They're at two very different stages. They have a lot of experience to share. So on that note, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to invite Sohini Day. She is from Empeal, and I'm going to ask her to tell us a little bit about her and her story along the way.
Thank you, Susan, for the introduction, and thank you to TU Dublin for inviting me today. I'm really honoured to be here, particularly with our long-standing relation with TU Dublin, Blantystown anyway. So just to give a background of where I come from will probably help why Empeal was born. So I did my CFA and MBA back in 1997, prehistoric days. And since then, I was working in the global equity markets, particularly specializing in sustainable equities and environmental solutions. So what happened during that time, obviously from a work-life balance, it was global equities, plus I had a young child and I moved to a different country. So a huge amount of change, a lot of change in my work-life balance as well. All that was taking a toll on my health. But also, because I was managing sustainable equities, one of the areas I was investing in was food and agriculture. And I was a very hands-on fund manager. So I was traveling across the globe trying to find what was going on in our food and agriculture value chain and what we were putting in our body. It kind of scared me, and combined with my health issues, literally in 2011, I was actually crawling up the stairs, and that kind of made me change my whole nutrition, lifestyle, and behavior while still working full time. I didn't leave my job. So it was those changes that I made in 2 years' time, I regained my full health, obviously with the help of a lot of coaches. But that kind of switched something on in my brain, and I realized that the power of nutrition, lifestyle, and behavior change can have on chronic health conditions. As a result, I started studying functional medicine, which is lifestyle medicine, and I trained myself as a nutritional therapist as well while working full-time. That was my kind of stress management at that time. But gradually in 2017, I realized that we should be using this power to do something. And as a result, my passion kind of changed towards this. And when into 2018, we started Empeal based on my particular personal experience. Empeal is basically a digital health company where we provide data-driven, clinician-led nutrition, lifestyle, and behavior change program. Now, when we started, initially for the first 6 months, we just did research on what people need, what were the problems we were solving. The New Frontiers was, I often say that was our foundation, because not only we met all our mentors during that time who are still our mentors today, but also that was a rigorous program where we found out what other problems we are solving, whom we are solving it for, and whether people will pay money for it. And these are the three very critical information that's needed for any startup. And that was one of the programs which was really helpful for us. Since then, we have won the Enterprise Ireland Competitive Startup Fund. We won international investments. We won angel investment. And then we won the NDRC program. We became a high potential startup. In the process, we also won a few awards. The last one being we were the top prize winner for the Alsacer AI, which is the Trinity Tangent program. Today we are, I started off from my kitchen table, and today we are a 13-member team with 6 people in Ireland, and we are growing. We are actually on a recruitment drive, and we have 7 people in India who, some of them will be moving to Ireland in the next 12 months as well. And I am very proud to say that we have achieved 50-50, even within the small team, we've achieved 50-50 gender balance. So what's next for Empeal? As I said, we're on a recruitment drive. We are expanding in UK. Our next Indian project starting in November as well. And we are in quite advanced commercial discussions with a few companies in UAE. We were based in the Link in TU Dublin in Blanchardstown, and we will continue to be there. We also, one interesting thing with TU Dublin is we actually, our design of the current app, it's a health and wellbeing app, as I said. The current app has been designed in collaboration with TU Dublin. So we continue to have that partnership, and we hope to continue our partnership not only on the design front, but also there are a few areas we would like to collaborate on: cybersecurity and machine. We are an AI company, so machine learning and AI will always be there. We try to work with third-level institutions, and TU Dublin is we are committed to remain to keep TU Dublin as our partner.
Thank you so much indeed for that, Sohini. And there's a couple of things really stand out to me there. Number one is the bravery that you had in moving from one part of your career to another. While it sounds like in many ways it was forced because of what was happening with your health along the time, it's really interesting how you became your own customer. And that is, of course, one of the best things about moving into a new business, is when you really know that there is a need. The second thing is the value that you got out of New Frontiers. And you mentioned those three key things that every entrepreneur really needs to know. And we might pick up on that again a little bit later. And the third thing is the sparkling record of awards and funding that happens along the way. Of course, market validation does happen when you've paying customers and active users, but also, of course, when you have that big credibility from all of those organisations as well. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you in a little while about the conversation of work-life balance, because it sounds like you've had quite the journey and so much more is to come. And on that note, can I now introduce Aisling Maher? And we are now going to hear about Aisling's story with Mooze Vegan.
Thank you very much, Susan, for that introduction, and thank you to everybody at TU Dublin for having us here today. I'm also delighted to be able to join in this discussion. So as Susan mentioned, my company is Mooze Vegan. I'm co-founder and CEO at Mooze Vegan. My fellow co-founders are Stephen O'Hanlon and Faye McCarthy, and the three of us were fortunate to meet together when we were doing a master's at TU Dublin. The master's was in business and entrepreneurship, and the idea for the business that we later developed originally came from a project that we were working on together when we had to develop a business plan. So Mooze Vegan is, as the name suggests, a vegan company, and we are developing high-protein vegan alternatives to milk. So presently we have two products that we're bringing to market, a chocolate and a vanilla-flavoured milk alternative. We're also working on a strawberry flavour at the minute, and our products are designed to give our customers an alternative to milk, which is sustainable, which is environmentally friendly, but which is also nutritiously valuable, which has a similar nutrient profile to other dairy alternatives. So that idea was originally born, as I mentioned, when we were doing our masters. We did a lot of work during the course of our masters on the basic principles of the business, of developing the idea and the potential that it had. We entered the Student Entrepreneurship Awards in 2020, and we were shortlisted and made it to the final that year. So I guess that really spurred us on. It really encouraged us. It allowed us to see the potential that our idea had, and it really helped to develop our desire to bring that product to market. So at this point in our journey, we decided that we needed mentorship and guidance to really push our idea forward. So we approached TU Dublin Hot House, who helped us in setting up as a student spin-out. So they helped us found our company, and they really gave us the mentorship that we needed at an early stage to understand exactly what was involved in turning our idea into a business. Not only did they help us with founding the company, but they also helped put the people around us to understand our best path to market and what we needed to do to get there. They helped us with finding a brand designer who could work for us on our packaging and on making our product convey the message that we wanted to bring across. They also helped us with many mentors in different areas, and with legal advice, and with giving us office space to develop our idea and to work together as a team. Through every stage of our journey, they've supported us in various ways. We were directed to go to SuperValue, who run a food academy program, and we worked for them for 6 months, and we really developed our product from a concept to an actual physical product at that point. So we've been really fortunate in the supports that we've got, both in funding and in mentorship, as I mentioned, and we wouldn't be where we are with our idea today without those supports. So myself and my other two co-founders, while studying at TU Dublin, were fortunate enough to be recipients of Elite Athlete Scholarship Awards. This was brilliant because it enabled us to meet together in a similar environment where we were all working towards a common idea. It also meant that we were bringing many of the same passions on board. So while we're all elite athletes, two of my co-founders are also vegan. So not only are we interested in nutrition and in optimal performance, but we're also interested in sustainability and making choices that not only benefit us, but also benefit the environment and the world around us as well. So as a student spin out at TU Dublin Hot House, we got many supports. Initially, these ranged from support in the Food Innovation Lab, where we worked on the formulation of our product and trying to obtain as high a protein content as we possibly could. This then developed into us being given incubation space at the Greenway Hub, which was extremely beneficial to us at that point because it allowed us to get a professional feel to our business and to have a location where we could work out of every day. This developed on then into the practicalities of the project as we received help in our brand development and our brand design, working with a professional brand designer to ensure our packaging was of the highest possible quality. So for Mooze Vegan at present, what's coming up next for us is the final stages of development of our product. So we now have a finalized product and we're just working to ensure that we can bring a long shelf life to that product to enable efficient distribution around the country. Once this has been achieved, we will initially enter the market through some niche vegan cafes around Dublin. Once we have ruled out any barriers that might be in place in our production and distribution chain, we will then be entering stores such as SuperValue. So we have been offered shelf space in SuperValue on a trial basis throughout a number of Dublin stores, and we look forward to being able to bring our product to store with them and to allow our consumers to access high protein vegan drinks on the go. So in terms of supports that we've had outside of Dublin, we are producing from Ballybay Food Hub in Monaghan, and we've received supports from Monaghan's local enterprise office there in the form of priming grants, which has helped us in buying the equipment that we need and the appliances that we need to kit out a unit and run a kitchen up there. In addition to that, we're presently applying to a number of other funds, such as the Women in Entrepreneurship CSF Fund, which is run through Enterprise Ireland.
I found your story also really interesting, Aisling, for a variety of reasons. Number one is the impact that studying with people who had similar ideas to you, but also similar passions to you in terms of sport, how that can lead you to so much more. But I'm also struck by how early entrepreneurship has entered into your life. And in addition, the amount of supports that you've been able to access for so many really and truly valid reasons as well. And I think we'll have a great conversation now as we bring Sohini Day back into our conversation, and we're going to have a chat about work-life balance, because you're both extremely busy women, very accomplished women, and also based on the growth trajectory that both of you are looking at, is there so much more to go. So maybe Sohini, could we go to you first? What does work-life balance mean to you in the context of having lost it the first time, which actually was the starting point to pursuing a whole new entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and particularly with the new work from home, COVID and all of that. So we would think that work-life balance has come back and we are doing it perfectly well, but we are not actually. But anyway, that's a good question. What does work-life balance mean to me? Now, I was busy. I changed career. I'm still busy. But the difference is I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Now, don't get me wrong. In my previous life, I was extremely happy what I was doing. But I think a bit of grey hair has added to the fact that now I know what really makes me happy and what I need to put myself first in some cases. Now, I'm not saying I'm doing it perfectly well, but I'm conscious and I'm trying to do it. So work-life balance to me is basically doing what I love doing.
And I think that that's a really important point, Sohini, is A, knowing what work-life balance is to you, and B, being happy in your job along the way. In many ways, Aisling, you're at the start of the journey. You are having moved out of university into entrepreneurship while still being in the university environment. You're at the start of that journey. But also, of course, let us not forget that you're also an elite athlete, as are your co-founders. So what does work-life sport balance mean in your case?
Yeah, well, I suppose in a lot of ways, when you play high-level sports, sport is life, so that is what you're balancing it with. And that makes it easier in some ways, because I guess sport and training is regimented. There's no option of missing it. When you play at a high level, you have to be at training, you have to be at matches, you can't not show up. So it does force some balance in with work, and then at the same time it makes it more difficult, because you do need a third section for life outside of sport and work, and that's sometimes more difficult to find when you're balancing two things already. So I guess it's been easier for me to find balance, because I'm used to having to be disciplined about my time and projecting what I'll be doing on certain days and at certain times. So I'm used to having to fit in things, so I can fit in life in one way, but I have to do it very consciously, because if I didn't, my life would be consumed by sport and work, I think, very quickly.
So what Aisling says is that she needs to make sure that her work-life balance are conscious decisions. So Sohini, over the last couple of years, what conscious decisions have you made, and what conscious actions have you taken in order to facilitate that work-life balance?
Yeah, as I say, now I'm conscious when I'm losing it. That's the biggest thing. So I'm absolutely, at some stage, what used to happen before was I would run myself down, and then I'm forced to take that time off. Whereas now I know that it's not all or nothing. I have to fit it in my daily life. So be conscious of trying to put myself first. Even like, I'm not talking about huge changes, not going for like 4 or 5 hour hikes or something, but even just to carve out a little bit of time for myself, just sit there, do nothing, think about nothing. It's like, you know, Harry Potter is pensive. I don't know whether you remember, if you visualize it. I actually visualize it, that my worries are actually going out of my brain, and I have a blank brain, and I'm just sitting there. It's you can call it, some call it meditation, but I would call it just time with myself. So I just have become more conscious of those. The other thing I'm conscious of now is I couldn't say no before. Now I know when to say no and what to say no to. I prioritize extremely. I'm always prioritizing whether, if I'm doing something, I always ask whether it's necessary for the business, whether it's necessary for my values, and then I say yes. The other thing is identifying time wasters. So absolutely be very, very strict with time wasters, and I'm happy to say no, which I couldn't do before.
And I think, Sohini, that the viewers here today would really value understanding how you say no. I mean, is it as simple as using that little word? Is it that you couch the language carefully? Is it that you put gatekeepers up in front of you? How exactly did you transition from maybe having those time wasters, etc., in your life to not? What happened along the way?
I think it was because everybody's busy nowadays, Susan, and we just don't have the time. Once you realize that if you're busy, you really have to take care of yourself. It is as simple as just saying no, but in a nice way. It's not like I can't do it now. But what I do is, you know, I can always reschedule. I don't have to do everything now. I can say no now, but maybe in 4 weeks' time, 8 weeks' time, I look at my diary, try to space it. Maybe in 4 weeks' time, I can say yes. So no doesn't mean no forever. But no means I don't have the headspace now. Please come back to me in 4 weeks' time. Or I don't have the headspace to do this thing now. Come back I'll do it in 4 weeks' time.
I'm noticing, Aisling, that you're nodding an awful lot to what Sohini is putting forward. Would you agree, the prioritization, the saying no, the not taking on the obligation to do everything at the same time? What's your take on this? What practical things have you put in place in order to make sure that work-life balance happens?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that she said. I think they're very valid points, and you know, it's very difficult to say no to somebody when they ask you to do it, but I would completely agree that you need to be able to prioritize A, what's important for the company, and B, what's important for you and your work-life balance. And I've found myself that a great way to ensure that somebody's not wasting your time and is actually interested in engaging and in learning and working from you is almost if you can task them with something they have to do before they get your time. So if they come and ask for advice on something, or for example, if somebody comes and asks me to do a training session with underage kids, that if you can say to them, that's no problem, I'm free on Wednesdays, and if you want to change the training session to Wednesdays and get a group of kids down on Wednesdays who want to be there, then absolutely they can have my time in the evening, and I'll do that work with them. But rather than you being the one that's constantly adapting to the person who's asked for your help, if you ask for a little bit back off them, I find that's a good way of weeding out time wasters, or people who are actually interested in having you there versus somebody who's kind of looking for an easy way out or looking for you to take a bit of the workload off them.
And I think that is often a very good way of making sure that the person who's asking for X is also willing to give on the other hand. And if we could just take that idea, and just I want to pick up on something that you mentioned earlier, a word, discipline. Generally, when we think of discipline, and I'm going to use a sporting analogy here, it's not an analogy, it's just sport, in fact, is discipline to me might be holding a plank longer, having an extra gym session, giving it 110%. I've been on a spinning bike when I've heard someone say that to me, and trying to dig deep for it. And is discipline, Aisling, is it always a negative word? As in, is it always ask you to go harder? Or can actually discipline be a positive word when it comes to work-life balance? What do you think?
I definitely think that it can have positive connotations. I use the phrase sometimes in my life that discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And yes, that's something that you can use when you're on a spin bike and you need to dig that bit deeper and you're striving to reach your goals, whatever they might be. But similarly, discipline is accepting that, okay, I need to be able to have time away from work, and I need to be able to have time with family, or time just to myself to be with my thoughts, or whatever it might be. And I think that if you sit down and you look forward in life and you make a plan for life, it's very easy to think, well, I want to have a business that I can run 3 days a week and have the rest of the time off. But if you're not disciplined about making decisions that are helping you get to that point, and that might be making decisions to work harder at your business, but similarly, that might be learning to take weekends off at an early stage in your business, and teaching your clientele that you work Monday to Friday and that's when you interact, or whatever it might be. So I think that discipline can definitely have positive connotations, and it's important to enforce discipline not just in the hard things in life, but also to be disciplined about things that are more enjoyable in life.
What do you think of that idea, Sohini? I mean, if I just take out that key question, what you want now versus what you want most. I mean, in your case, you know what it's like to have had to make that decision many times over time. You know what happens at the outcome of the long term, etc. What's your thought on long-term work-life balance in the context that, of course, it changes depending on your stage?
Yeah, I think that just to pick up on that, the discipline, today it will feel like discipline, but if you look at it in the long term, it becomes your habit. So if you can instill that discipline today, long term, you will have the habit. It's all about breaking down into smaller pieces. Even when I'm in my business, what I do is I know the bigger picture, what I want to do in the bigger picture. I want to have 1 million users by 2024. But what are the smaller things I need to do today to reach there? My 6-month goal. I'm very kind of like a horse with blinkers. I have to get that 6 months done. So similarly, when I'm looking at it from a work-life perspective, I always look at it from shorter-term disciplines. I'll give you an example. I'm very conscious of the work-life balance because I have gone through something which I don't want to end up again, So, but still, I can't do it all the time. And I'll give you an example what happened during COVID. When we were stuck at home, I would get up at 6 o'clock, start working, just open the laptop for one email, and I would absolutely get engrossed in it with no time for lunch, no time for water or anything. And then it would be 10 o'clock at night, and I don't know where the time went. And even after 10 o'clock, when I closed my laptop, I would have that uneasy feeling in myself that, I didn't do all my work. Now, work from home is great for all sorts of small, convenience. But at the same time, when I went back to work, I realized that I was starting work at 8, half 7 even, or even if in the evening I was working till 7 in the evening. When I came back home, I wasn't opening my laptop. These are the small disciplines which I try to put in the short term, and that becomes my habit in the long term.
It certainly is an interesting point there, is that what you might set out to do today becomes a habit, and therefore you don't consciously make decisions anymore because your habit is in the driving seat. And I like that idea as well, as that, those small things. And I noticed both of us were nodding, smiling with that idea. I'll just look at one email at 6 in the morning and then, yes. But I do want to address one hard question with you both before we wrap up this session. And that is that so far in our conversations today, we've spoken about your relationship with work-life balance. The reality is that in your case, Aisling, you have 2 co-founders. In your case, Sohini, you're a parent. So work-life balance is actually a very multi-relationship context. So maybe, Aisling, could you just tell us, have you had that conversation with your co-founders around what work-life balance means, not just today, but into whatever the long term might be?
Mm-hmm. I suppose yes and no is the answer to that question. As I mentioned, I play a lot of sports, so do both of my co-founders. So again, there is a level of flexibility that's necessary for the 3 of us to function, which in one way makes it easier because they both also need time off for training and matches and everything else. And in another way, it makes it harder when we're all playing championship together. Nobody's around to run the business behind. So it is something that's challenging. I think one of the benefits of us setting up this company coming straight out of college is that we're used to a certain amount of flexibility in our work-life balance. We're not coming out of a job where we've worked 9 to 5 or 9 to 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, as it might be for a lot of people. So we're used to being able to take a Tuesday morning off if we want to, or to have that little bit of flexibility during the week. And it's definitely something that we've discussed insofar as it's something that we each enjoy, being able to meet friends for a coffee or go for a hike is something that's important to each of us. So it's definitely something that we will try and maintain going forwards. And I guess the way that we're doing that in the minute is trying to ensure that at any given time there's 1 or 2 of us preferably around, but it doesn't need to be all 3 of us.
There's a real trend here with hiking in this conversation. Wherever this is coming from, I'm wondering if that is the case. As the final word, Sohini, what's your own take on this work-life balance in a multi-relationship context that you have?
Yeah, I think, like, again, as I said as a woman before as well, we try for perfection. I don't know whether it's inherently woman or whatever, but we generally try for perfection. And again, because of the grey hairs, I probably at this stage have gone, I don't need perfection. I need to be happy. And work-life balance is all about happiness to me. My co-founder lives with me, so there used to be at some stage you would come in at 12 o'clock at night and talk about work, and I would have to go, no, that door is closed. And so it's again about discipline, and we both know that it's with the business, anything in life, Susan, I can keel over tomorrow and still you're a CFA, so you would know the business continuity perspective. So even if I keel over, it'll go. Nobody is irreplaceable. So we need to have that time for ourselves. I'm a daughter, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a niece, everything. But at the end of the day, if I don't look after myself, if I don't sleep properly, if I am not managing my stress, if I'm not eating well, and if I'm not exercising well, and my body goes completely bonkers, my work will hamper. So it's actually the other way around. Your life has to fuel your work, not work has to fuel your life. Once we realize that and we have those boundaries, we are happy. I think that's what work-life balance is for me.
Well, Sohini, that is the perfect way indeed to end our conversation today. And I think, there's a range of key takeaways that we can take. Number 1 is that work is there to support life and not the other way around. Number 2 is also Aisling's question, and that is, what is most important now versus what do you want most? And of course, the third thing is to understand that perfection is not what any of us can actually aspire to, but instead finding out what makes us happy and what makes our life and our work meaningful indeed. So on that note, I'm going to thank both of our speakers sincerely, not just for their insights actually, but for their authenticity, and also for being honest with us and telling us exactly how they feel about this, how they expect to feel in the future, and what they're doing today to put long-term habits in place. And of course, thank you so much indeed for tuning in to this series. We do hope that it gives you another sense and perspective around the whole area of entrepreneurship. So from me, Susan HayesCulleton, thank you so much indeed for being here with us, and we're going to see you for the next part of the series very soon.